This fishing trip had been planned for well over a year. I had promised Aliex that I was going to take him out into KW, and it had just never happened. I finally committed to this particular day and made it happen. The weather forecast wasn't good. When I checked the radar before leaving the house, Florida Bay was under rain completely. Picked Aliex up, met Icy at the visitor center for Everglades National Park. We went to Flamingo. It looked somewhat promising, so we splashed the boat and headed out. Immediately we were running away from rainstorms. You can see several of them in the background here. So that kind of dictated where we were going fishing. We started trying for some trout, trolling, trying to find them, and all we were finding were jacks. Here's a little bit of the action. Throughout this movie, I will be using two different cameras, one of which is in a waterproof case, and the audio track is very faint. So I'll be doing some voiceovers if I'm using that particular camera for the picture. Icy was the first one to hook up with a fish. Wasn't too long before we had that one on board. We trolled around for a while trying to find some trout, but it just wasn't happening. We picked up another jack. Aliex caught a jack, and so both the guys had one fish to their credit. But as you can see from the background here, storms were approaching, and I decided to call the trip. I told the fellows to pack up the gear and secure the boat, and we started heading back to Flamingo. I kept watching that storm that had chased us away from where we were trolling for trout, and it looked like it was raining itself out and also shifting directions. So I decided to make another stop on the way back to Flamingo. This is an area that has been hit and miss for me in the past. Icy was the first one to get his line wet, and on the very first cast, caught himself speckled trout. We had found the trout.
Yeah! Yeah, man! Get him, Aliex! Got him. Triple! Oh my God! Trout. Look out! We got a triple, you guys. Got a trout.
This one is right under the boat.
3 trout.
All right.
Yeah,
Aliex
triple,
snagged
guys.
his.
Yeah, we got a triple.
Triple.
Awesome.
What's up?
Yeah, but
When?
Here we go. This guy. This feels good.
Hey, went to town with this.
Yeah, we got a double. This is keeper right here, boys.
Oh man, Icy, I'm beating you. This is almost 17, bro.
Yeah? Well, I think I just got you, bro.
Yeah!
You know what?
there we go. There we go. Oh.
Right there on the boat, Jim.
Get him, Jim.
Good
Right
job,
here,
man.
too.
Come on. I don't think
Oh man, I hate missing bites.
Icy and I were fishing out of the back of the boat, stern. Aliex was fishing out of the bow. And it just seemed like every cast we were hooking up with a trout. We had found the honey hole. Aliex was catching just as many trout out of the front as we were in the back. Here you can see we're doubled up. You previously saw a triple. We had a lot of singles. Majority of the trout that we were catching were 13 to 15 inches. I told the fellows to throw back any fish under 15.5 inches, although the slot size is 15 to 20, and the limit is 4 per person, one of which can be over 20 inches. I just didn't want any problems with the law when we got back to the dock if they were checking the fish.
my God. Right at the back of the boat. Is that insane?
Looks like a keeper, right?
That's, I can tell right now. Ow, Jesus.
Okay, cool.
This will give you an idea as to how insane this fishing was. Icy has caught trout here, and he will reel it up to the boat. We were noticing that as the trout were coming in, several trout would be following it just underneath. You see he's holding the trout in the water, still hooked on his line. And notice that he was using an artificial underneath a popping cork. That was unusual. Never seen that done before. But with his fish in the water, I was casting underneath it. Now on that particular instance, I did not hook up. On another one, where I had done the same thing with keeping my fish in the water, they were able to pull a trout out from underneath. Kind of like you would with dolphin fish, mahi-mahi offshore, where you hook one, you keep them in the water, and that one fish attracts the other fish around you. This is about as close as I have ever come to losing some fishing gear. I had caught this trout, and as I was trying to unhook it, I don't know whether it was his snaggletooth or the hook itself, but it raked the top of my index finger. And the surprise of it, I don't know, I guess I dropped my rod and it just happened to hit right and caught it before it went over. And then you see here Icy was unhooking my lure.
I like this little spot.
I think we came at the right time.
Get him, Alex, get him. Eric's got a jumper.
Why are they so cold?
They're aggressive today. Oh, Jim got one over here.
Yeah.
Get him, Jim.
Get him, Jim, get him.
Try that one.
Now this next clip here was a bit of a surprise, a welcome surprise. Not me casting here, but Aliex. You can see he just hooked into a fish. It wasn't a jack, and it was giving him a little bit of a fight, which speckled trout generally doesn't do. You can just pull them across the top of the water. But this was a real surprise, because Aliex had just caught the first redfish that's been caught on my boat in Florida Bay.
You see the spot? There you go. What is it, about 14?
It's not legal.
All right.
Redfish, that's one in the
That's a redfish. That's right. All right. Gotcha.
Get him, Jim, get him.
And God, that's a keeper. That's a keeper. I'm telling you, didn't I tell you?
There it is. That's a good one right there. Look, it swallowed. Look how aggressive they are. They swallow the bait. Oh, that's a nice one.
Let's see. What have I got here?
That's 17. Easy.
Oh, yeah.
That's keeper.
Thank you.
I think it's getting closer, Jim.
Whatever. It stayed over there, you see? We're just getting clouds.
You know what it is? Alex doesn't want to get.
So it's getting punked over here.
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting punked. I got a redfish. Wake me up when you catch something like that.
He's 17 and a half.
I told you it was on 17. That's a keeper right there. Look at him jumping back over there. Here we go. Here we go. What? What were you saying? I got me a whiting.
Did you really?
Yes.
Wow.
Guess what? He's coming home.
Aliex and Icy had changed locations in the boat, and now Aliex was fishing out of the back where I had this one camera trained. I don't know if you noticed, but we were still paying very close attention to the skies. There were some very serious storms with an occasional clap of thunder, close enough to us that it warranted us watching it. We were ready to call the trip at any point. We were just in this honey hole of trout, and as fishermen know, when the bite is on, you just don't want to leave. It was very productive, and as you can see here, Aliex is having a blast pulling in these trout in the back of the boat. And again, you can see just how fast the action was. I'm pulling in a fish, Aliex makes a cast, retrieves it, and before I get my fish unhooked, he has cast again and has another fish on. Our window of opportunity was closing very quickly. You can see the rainstorm that was going to just soak us fast approaching from the rear, so I called the trip. The rear camera recorded 35 landed fish, of which 25 were trout. And I've got to say, it was really nice, all of us limiting out.
All right, everybody, I'm using Icy's GoPro stick here so you can see us all. Excellent day of fishing out in the Florida Bay. Speckled trout, crevalle jacks, whiting, sailtop or sailfin catfish, however that species is described.
Redfish.
A redfish.
Caught a redfish. Aliex caught a redfish. First
Yep.
one I've seen caught
That's a
out in
good one,
Florida
too.
Bay. Undersized, but still, that was very exciting. So, anyhow, as always,
My pleasure.
enjoyed it, gentlemen.
Thanks, bro.
We'll have to do it again. Oops, the
That's
camera got a
right.
little out of whack there.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. And as always, bent rods, tight lines.
And keep chasing wild.
That's right.